The foreclosure notice landed on Elena Graves's counter like a death sentence. The crisp white paper stark against the worn wood she had polished every morning for the past 6 years. She read it 3 times, her hands trembling so badly that the letters blurred together, and when she finally looked up, the man who delivered it was already gone. Petals Promises had been her grandmother's shop before it was hers, a tiny storefront wedged between a bakery and a bookstore on Maple Street, where the morning light streamed through the front windows and made the roses glow like they were lit from within. Elena had taken over when her grandmother passed, pouring every penny she had into keeping the doors open, into maintaining the legacy of careful arrangements and personal touches that had made the shop beloved for 3 decades. She knew every customer by name, remembered their anniversaries and their children's birthdays, kept notes about which flowers made them smile. But knowing their stories did not pay the bills. The winter had been brutal, business slow, and when her ancient delivery van finally died, the repair costs had gutted her already thin savings. She had fallen behind on rent, then fallen further, and now the building's new owner had decided enough was enough. Elena closed the shop early that day, turning the sign with hands that felt disconnected from her body. She walked home through streets she had known her whole life, past the park where she used to play as a child, past the library where she had spent every summer reading, and felt like she was saying goodbye to all of it. Without the shop, she would have to leave. There was nothing else for her here, no other job that could keep her in the small downtown apartment she loved, no other purpose that had ever made sense. She did not sleep that night. Instead, she sat at her grandmother's old desk and went through the numbers again and again, hoping to find something she had missed, some miracle buried in the columns. But math was merciless, and by dawn she knew the truth. She had 2 weeks to vacate the premises. Quinn Vanderbilt stood in his corner office 60 miles away, looking out at a city view that had cost him $8 million, and felt nothing. He had closed the acquisition deal on the Maple Street property portfolio 3 months ago, 12 buildings purchased at below market value from a desperate seller, and the numbers had been excellent. His firm specialized in commercial real estate, buying underperforming properties, clearing out problematic tenants and flipping them for development. It was efficient, profitable, and entirely legal. His assistant had handled most of the eviction notices. Quinn barely glanced at the list of businesses being cleared out. A flower shop, a vintage clothing store, a small accounting office. The buildings would be torn down, replaced with a mixed-use development that would triple his investment. It was exactly the kind of deal he had built his career on, the kind of ruthless efficiency that had made him a billionaire before 40. He signed off on the project without a second thought and moved on to the next deal. 2 weeks later, Elena started packing. Her employees, both part-timers who had been with her for years, helped in silence, wrapping vases in newspaper, boxing up ribbons and wire. Mrs. Chen from the bakery next door brought them lunch and cried while they ate. Mr. Patterson from the bookstore offered Elena a job, but they both knew he could barely afford his own rent. On the last day, Elena stayed late after everyone left. She walked through the empty shop, running her fingers along the walls, breathing in the lingering scent of flowers and earth. She thought about her grandmother teaching her to trim stems at an angle, to strip leaves below the water line, to listen when customers talked because sometimes they needed someone to hear them more than they needed the perfect bouquet. She locked the door for the final time and walked away without looking back. If she looked back, she would fall apart, and she could not afford to fall apart yet. Quinn was at her restaurant downtown, meeting with investors when he saw the article. Someone had left a local newspaper on the bar, and while he waited for his party to arrive, he flipped through it idly. The headline caught his eye. Historic Maple Street businesses shuttered for development. The article was short but pointed, highlighting 3 businesses that had been institutions in their small downtown for decades. There was a photo of an older man standing in front of his bookstore, looking defeated. Another of 2 women beside a vintage clothing rack, hugging each other. And then Elena, standing in front of Petals and Promises with a bouquet of white lilies in her arms, her expression so carefully neutral it made something twist in Quinn's chest. He read the paragraph about her shop twice. Family business, 3 decades of service, beloved by the community. The journalist had interviewed several customers who spoke about Elena's kindness, her generosity, how she had donated flowers to every funeral, every wedding, every celebration for people who could not afford them. How she had kept the shop going after her grandmother died because she believed some things mattered more than money. Quinn set the paper down and stared at his reflection in the bar mirror. He looked successful, powerful, exactly like what he was. And for the first time in years, he felt the cold weight of shame settling in his gut. The meeting went poorly. Quinn could not focus, could not summon his usual sharp certainty. The investors noticed, exchanged glances, and by the time they left, he knew he had failed to close the deal. He sat at the bar afterward, nursing a whiskey he did not want, and could not stop thinking about the woman in the photograph. He told himself it was business, just business. But the excuse felt hollow. He drove out to Maple Street the next morning without really deciding to do it. The downtown area was quaint, tree-lined, the kind of place that reminded him of the small town where he had grown up before he left for college and never looked back. The flower shop was dark, a space available sign already in the window. Quinn parked across the street and sat there, staring at the empty storefront, trying to remember when he had become the kind of man who destroyed places like this without a second thought. The bakery next door was open, and on impulse, Quinn went inside. The woman behind the counter, middle-aged with kind eyes, smiled at him automatically. "What can I get you? Just coffee, please. Black." He hesitated, then added, "I noticed the flower shop next door closed. Was it any good?" The woman's smile faded. "Any good?" Petals and Promises was the heart of this street. Elena Graves ran it, and that girl was an angel, always helping people, always going above and beyond. It's a crime what happened to her. Quinn's throat felt tight. What did happen? New owner bought the building, jacked up the rent, then kicked her out when she could not pay. She tried so hard to make it work, but Mrs. Chen shook her head. Some people only care about money. They do not see the value in community, in history. They just see dollar signs. She handed him his coffee, and Quinn thanked her quietly. He left without drinking it, throwing it in a trash can outside, and sat in his car with his hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. He was the villain in this story. He had not meant to be, had not thought about it in those terms, but intention did not matter. He had taken something precious and destroyed it because he could, because it was profitable, because he had stopped seeing people as anything more than obstacles to his next deal. The realization sat in his chest like a stone. Quinn spent the next 3 days trying to find Elena. It should have been easy. He had resources, connections, people who could track down anyone. But Elena Graves had seemingly vanished. Her apartment was empty, forwarding address unknown. Her phone number was disconnected. None of the other shop owners would talk to him once they realized who he was, and he could not blame them. Finally, he found her through the local community college. She had enrolled in their certification program for medical billing, trying to pivot to something, anything, that would pay the bills. The registrar would not give him her contact information, but she let slip that Elena was working part-time at the campus library to cover tuition. Quinn showed up on a Thursday afternoon, walking through the library's double doors with no plan and no idea what he was going to say. He found her shelving books in the back corner, her dark hair pulled into a ponytail, wearing jeans and a sweater that had seen better days. She looked tired, shadows under her eyes that had not been in the newspaper photo. He stood there for a full minute, watching her work before he found his voice. "Elena Graves," she turned, and her expression shifted immediately when she saw him. It was not recognition exactly. More awareness, the instinctive caution of someone who had been hurt and was not ready to be hurt again. "Yes, my name is Quinn Vanderbilt. I'm the one who bought the building your flower shop was in. I'm the reason you had to close." The book in her hand slipped and she barely caught it. Her face went pale, then flushed with anger. "What are you doing here?" I wanted to apologize. Apologize. She repeated the word like it was in a foreign language. "You destroyed my life, my grandmother's legacy, everything I worked for, and you want to apologize?" "Yes." Quinn took a step forward and stopped when she took a step back. "I know it's not enough. I know it does not fix anything, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. I did not think about what I was doing, about who it would hurt. I just saw numbers on a spreadsheet." "Well, congratulations. You saw numbers and I lost everything." Her voice was shaking and he could see her fighting to keep control. "Is that all? Because I have work to do." "No, that's not all." Quinn pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "I want to make this right. I'm offering you your space back. 6 months of free rent and then a lease at your original rate, locked in for 5 years. I'll halt the development project." Elena stared at the envelope like it might bite her. "Why would you do that?" "Because it's the right thing to do. Because I was wrong." He set the envelope on the shelf beside her. "You do not have to decide now. Take time to think about it, but I mean it. I want to make this right." She did not touch the envelope. "I can't afford to restart the business. I lost everything in the closure. I sold my equipment, my inventory. Even if you gave me the space back, I have nothing to fill it with." Quinn had anticipated this. "I'll provide startup capital. Whatever you need to get back on your feet. Call it an investment or reparations, or whatever makes you feel comfortable taking it. I do not want your money." The words came out hard and final. "I do not want anything from you." "Then what do you want?" He asked it genuinely, desperately. "Tell me how to fix this." Elena looked at him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face for something he was not sure he had. "I want to go back in time and never meet you. I want my grandmother's shop to still be standing. I want my life back." Her voice broke on the last word. "But I cannot have any of that, so please just leave me alone." She turned and walked away, leaving the envelope untouched on the shelf. Quinn stood there until a librarian asked him if he needed help finding something, and then he left, feeling like he had swallowed glass. But he could not leave it alone. Over the next week, he made calls, pulled strings, used every bit of influence he had. He halted the development project officially, dealing with angry investors and frustrated partners. He had the flower shop space cleaned, repaired, brought up to code. He tracked down Elena's old equipment through the people who had bought it at her liquidation sale and purchased it all back, at 3 times what they paid. He did not tell her any of this. He just did it, driven by a guilt that felt like it was eating him alive. Mrs. Chen from the bakery called Elena on a Tuesday morning. "You need to come down to Maple Street. Something strange is happening." Elena did not want to go. She had been avoiding that part of town, taking longer routes to everywhere she needed to be, because she could not stand to see the empty shop window. But Mrs. Chen sounded urgent, and Elena owed her too much to refuse. She drove down in the old Honda she had bought after selling her van and parked in front of Petals and Promises. The space available sign was gone. Through the window, she could see movement inside, people working. Her heart started pounding. Mrs. Chen was waiting outside the bakery. "That billionaire, the one who kicked you out. He has been here every day for a week. I think he is setting up your shop again." Elena's hands were shaking. "That's impossible. Go look." She crossed the street on unsteady legs and tried the door. It was unlocked. Inside, the shop looked almost exactly as she had left it. Her old coolers were back, humming quietly. Her work table was in its place by the window. There were new shelves along the walls, and someone had repainted, but carefully, in the same soft cream color her grandmother had chosen decades ago. Quinn was in the back room directing two workers who were installing something. He turned when he heard her footsteps, and his expression shifted, guarded but hopeful. "What is this?" Elena asked. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "I told you I wanted to make it right." Quinn dismissed the workers with a gesture, and they left through the back door. "I got your equipment back. I fixed up the space. I have accounts set up with 3 flour wholesalers, and I have paid the deposits. You can reopen whenever you are ready. I told you I did not want your money." "I know, but I did it anyway because I needed to do something." He ran a hand through his hair, and Elena noticed for the first time that he looked tired too. "I have spent my entire adult life building things and tearing things down, and I never once stopped to think about whether I should. And then I tore down something that mattered, something real, and I cannot stop thinking about it, about you, about what I took from you." Elena wanted to be angry. She had every right to be angry. But standing in her grandmother's shop, seeing it whole again, she felt something else entirely. Something fragile and tentative. "Why do you care?" she asked quietly. "You do not know me. You did not know my grandmother. We are just another business you bulldozed." "I care because I should have cared from the beginning. I care because when I read about what I did to you, to this place, I was ashamed. And I have not felt ashamed of a business decision in 15 years. He took a step closer. "I care because you deserved better, and because maybe if I can fix this, I can start being the kind of man I used to think I was." She could see he meant it. It was in every line of his face, every tense angle of his shoulders. "I do not have staff anymore. My employees found other jobs. I will help you find new staff, or I'll help you run it until you get back on your feet." He paused. "I know you have no reason to trust me, but I am asking you to give me a chance to prove I am more than the worst thing I have done." Elena walked slowly through the shop, touching the counters, the shelves, breathing in the smell of fresh paint and possibility. She thought about her grandmother, about what she would say if she were here. Probably something about second chances and the importance of forgiveness. Her grandmother had always believed in the goodness of people, even when they disappointed her. "I will think about it," Elena said finally. "I need time. Take all the time you need. The space is yours regardless." Quinn pulled out a business card and set it on the counter. "That's my personal number. Call me if you decide you want to try." He left before she could respond, and Elena stood alone in the shop that had been lost and was now somehow found. She picked up the business card and turned it over in her fingers, reading the name embossed in neat black letters. Quinn Vanderbilt. The man who had destroyed her life. The man who was trying desperately to put it back together. She did not call him for 3 days. She went to her classes, worked her library shifts, and lay awake at night thinking about what it would mean to accept his help. Whether she could separate the gesture from the harm that came before it. Whether she was betraying her grandmother's memory by even considering it. On the 4th day, she drove back to Maple Street early in the morning and let herself into the shop. She walked through it slowly, checking every detail. The coolers were stocked with foam and wire and all the basics she would need. The register was new but familiar in design. There was a file folder on the counter marked Accounts, and when she opened it, she found everything she needed to order inventory, all the payments handled. He had thought of everything. It was thorough, careful, the kind of attention to detail that spoke of someone who genuinely wanted to make things right. Elena pulled out her phone and dialed the number on the business card before she could talk herself out of it. Quinn answered on the second ring. "Hello, it's Elena Graves. Can you come to the shop? I will be there in 45 minutes. He made it in 35. Elena was arranging the counter display when he walked in and she straightened, wiping her hands on her jeans. "I have conditions," she said without preamble. "Name them." "First, this is a loan, not a gift. I will pay you back every penny with interest. We will draw up proper paperwork. Done. Second, you do not get to make decisions about the shop. It's mine to run as I see fit. Agreed. Third, I do not want this to be some vanity project for you. If you are doing this to make yourself feel better, I do not want any part of it." Quinn met her eyes steadily. "I am doing this because I owe you, but I would be lying if I said it was only that. I want to be part of something good. I have spent too long being part of things that were just profitable." It was not the answer she expected, and it was more honest than she was prepared for. "You said you would help me run it until I got back on my feet. Did you mean that?" "Yes." "Do you know anything about flowers?" "Nothing at all." Despite everything, Elena felt the corner of her mouth twitch. "Then I hope you are a fast learner. I'll need help prepping arrangements, making deliveries, handling customers. The hours are long, the pay is terrible, and your hands will be constantly wet and probably covered in thorns." "When do I start?" "Tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock. Quinn nodded. "I will be here." He was there at 5:45, holding 2 cups of coffee. Elena arrived at 6 on the dot and found him waiting by the door, looking absurdly out of place in his expensive suit and Italian shoes. "You cannot work in that," she said, unlocking the door. "I brought a change of clothes." He emerged from the bathroom 10 minutes later in jeans and a plain black t-shirt. And Elena had to look away because he looked different like this. More real, less like the billionaire villain from the newspaper, and more like just a man. A very handsome man, she noticed against her will, with broad shoulders and strong hands and eyes that were startlingly blue. She pushed the thought away. This was business, reparations, nothing more. "We start by processing inventory," she said briskly. "I have an order coming in at 7 from the wholesaler. We will need to unpack it, process everything, get it into water. Then we will work on arrangements for the reopening." Quinn followed her instructions without complaint. He hauled boxes, stripped stems, filled buckets with water and flower food. He was clumsy at first, snapping stems and pricking his fingers on thorns, but he learned quickly. By mid-morning, he had settled into a rhythm, working beside her in comfortable silence. Elena watched him out of the corner of her eye, looking for signs of impatience or regret, but found none. He seemed focused, present in a way she had not expected from a man who dealt in millions. "Why did you really come back?" she asked finally, unable to hold the question in any longer. "You could have just written a check and walked away. Salved your conscience without any of this." Quinn paused, a bundle of roses in his hands. "Because a check would have been about me making myself feel better. This is about actually fixing what I broke." He looked at her directly. "And because I wanted to know you, the woman in that photograph who cared more about people than profit. I wanted to understand what that looked like." "I am not special," Elena said quietly. "I just did what my grandmother taught me, care about people, show up, do the work. That's exactly what makes you special." He went back to the roses, stripping leaves with careful precision. I have been surrounded by people who only care about the bottom line for so long that I forgot there was another way to live. They worked until evening, until the shop was bursting with fresh flowers and the coolers were organized, and the front windows displayed arrangements that made Elena's heart swell, with something that felt dangerously like hope. Quinn's hands were red and scratched, his expensive jeans splattered with water and plant debris, and he had never looked more human. "Thank you," Elena said as they locked up, "for today, for all of this." "Thank you for giving me the chance." Quinn hesitated. "Same time tomorrow." "Same time tomorrow." The pattern held for the next 2 weeks. Quinn showed up before dawn, worked beside her until closing, and slowly transformed from a fumbling amateur into something approaching competent. He learned to wire bouquets, to arrange centerpieces, to talk to customers with genuine warmth. Mrs. Chen started bringing them lunch. Mr. Patterson stopped by with books he thought they would like. The neighborhood slowly accepted Quinn's presence, though Elena could tell they were reserving judgment. She was reserving judgment too. But it got harder every day, because Quinn was not what she expected. He was patient with difficult customers, gentle with delicate blooms, quick to laugh at his own mistakes. He asked questions about her grandmother, about the history of the shop, and listened to her answers like they mattered. He stayed late to help her refinish the old work table, and arrived early to help hang new curtains in the back room. He existed in her space without trying to take it over, and that restraint felt like its own kind of gift. 3 weeks in, they had their first real rush. A wedding party came in needing last-minute arrangements for a ceremony that weekend, and Elena spent 6 hours designing bouquets and centerpieces, while Quinn prepped stems and fetched supplies, and kept her supplied with coffee and encouragement. They worked past midnight, surrounded by white roses and eucalyptus, and when they finally finished, Elena collapsed onto the floor with her back against the cooler. Quinn sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. That was intense. That was a normal Saturday. Elena laughed, giddy with exhaustion. "Welcome to the flower business. I had no idea it was this much work." Most people do not. They see the pretty arrangements and think it's just arts and crafts. They do not see the early mornings, the physical labor, the constant problem-solving. She tilted her head back against the cooler. "But I love it. Even when it is hard, even when it is exhausting, I love making things beautiful for people on their most important days." Quinn turned to look at her, and Elena felt the weight of his gaze. "You are really good at this. At making people feel seen and cared for. It's not just the flowers, it's you." Something in his voice made her pulse quicken. "Quinn, I know this is complicated. I know I'm the last person you should trust. But Elena, spending these weeks with you has been the best part of my year. Maybe the best part of several years. You make me want to be better." "You are better," Elena said softly. "You have been showing up, doing the work. That matters. Does it matter enough that maybe you could see me as something other than the man who foreclosed on your shop?" She should say no. She should maintain the boundaries that kept this safe and professional. But sitting there in the flower-scented darkness, exhausted and honest, she could not make herself lie. "I already do," she admitted. "I have for a while now, and it terrifies me." Quinn reached over and took her hand, lacing their fingers together. His palm was rough with new calluses, his grip warm and steady. "It terrifies me too. I have not let anyone close in years. It is easier to keep people at a distance, to focus on work and numbers and deals. But I do not want to do that anymore. I do not want to keep you at a distance." Elena squeezed his hand, feeling like she was standing at the edge of a cliff. "What do? We take it slow. We figure it out together." He brushed his thumb across her knuckles. "I'm not going anywhere, Elena. Not unless you tell me to." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat there until dawn started filtering through the windows, neither of them willing to be the first to let go. The shop reopened on a bright Saturday in April, and the turnout was overwhelming. It seemed like the entire neighborhood showed up, plus customers Elena had not seen in months, all eager to celebrate Petals and Promises' return. Quinn stayed in the background mostly, handling the register and restocking while Elena worked the floor, but she was always aware of him, of the way he watched her with something tender in his expression. Mrs. Chen cornered her during a brief lull. "That man is in love with you." Elena felt her cheeks heat. "It is not like that. It is exactly like that, and unless I am very wrong, you are in love with him too." Mrs. Chen patted her arm. "Your grandmother would tell you the same thing I am going to tell you. Life is too short to waste chances at happiness. That man hurt you, yes, but he is doing everything he can to make it right. That is rare. Do not throw it away because you are scared." "I am scared," Elena admitted. "What if he changes his mind? What if this is just guilt and once he feels better about himself, he leaves? Then you will hurt and you will heal and you will have been loved for a while, but I do not think that is what will happen. I have been watching that boy for weeks now and I know what love looks like." Mrs. Chen smiled. "Trust yourself, Elena. You have good instincts about people." "What do they tell you about him?" Elena looked across the shop to where Quinn was carefully wrapping a bouquet for an elderly customer, his expression focused and kind. Her instincts told her he was genuine. That the man she had gotten to know over these weeks was the real Quinn, not the ruthless billionaire from the newspaper. That he had changed, or maybe just remembered who he was supposed to be. "They tell me to trust him," she said quietly. "Then listen." That night after they closed up and counted the register, Quinn offered to walk Elena home. She lived only a few blocks away, an easy walk through quiet streets, but she said yes anyway. They walked slowly in no hurry to end the day. "Thank you for today," Elena said, "for everything. I could not have done this without you." "Yes, you could have. You are stronger than you think," Quinn smiled. "But I am glad I got to be part of it." They reached her building, a modest complex with a red door and window boxes that Elena had filled with pansies. She turned to say good night and found Quinn looking at her with an expression that made her heart stutter. "Can I take you to dinner?" he asked. "A real dinner, not working through lunch at the shop. I want to take you somewhere nice and spend an evening learning everything about you that I have not already learned while cutting flower stems." Elena knew this was the moment. She could say no, keep things professional, protect herself from the risk. Or she could say yes and see where this terrifying, wonderful thing between them might lead. "Yes," she said. "I would like that." Quinn's face lit up and he grinned at her like she had given him something precious. "Tomorrow night, I will pick you up at 7. Tomorrow night." He left with a wave and Elena climbed the stairs to her apartment feeling lighter than she had in months. She called her best friend Sarah immediately. "He asked me out." Sarah squealed. "Finally! I have been waiting for you to admit you have feelings for him. Tell me everything." Elena filled her in on the past few weeks, on the way Quinn had slowly become indispensable to her, on the quiet moments and shared laughter and the growing certainty that this was something real. "I am happy for you," Sarah said warmly. "You deserve someone who sees how special you are." And he clearly does. It is still complicated, though. He's a billionaire, Sarah. We live in completely different worlds. So you will figure it out. Love does not care about tax brackets. Sarah paused. "You do love him, do not you?" Elena thought about Quinn's gentle hands on delicate petals, his patient attention to detail, the way he looked at her like she was more valuable than all his properties combined. "I think I might. Is that crazy, after everything that happened?" "It is not crazy. It is human. We are allowed to change our minds about people when they prove they have changed." Sarah's voice softened. Go to dinner. Have fun. Let yourself be happy. Quinn picked her up at exactly 7, wearing charcoal slacks and a white button-down that made Elena's mouth go dry. She had spent an hour getting ready, changing 3 times before settling on a simple navy dress that her grandmother had always said brought out her eyes. You look beautiful, Quinn said when she opened the door, and the sincerity in his voice made her blush. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. He took her to a restaurant on the water, intimate and elegant, with candles on every table and soft music playing. They ordered wine and seafood, but Elena barely tasted any of it. She was too focused on Quinn, on the way conversation flowed easily between them now that they were not surrounded by flowers and customers. He told her about growing up in a small town in Ohio, about being the first in his family to go to college, about the drive to succeed that had pushed him into business and kept him climbing until he reached the top. I thought success would feel different, he admitted. I thought when I finally made it, when I had enough money and power, I would feel satisfied, but I just felt empty. I kept chasing the next deal, the next acquisition, trying to fill something that could not be filled with work. What changed? Elena asked. Meeting you. Seeing what I had destroyed because I was not paying attention to anything but profit. He reached across the table and took her hand. You showed me what matters: community, connection, making things instead of just consuming them. I do not want to go back to who I was before. You do not have to, Elena said. You are already different. I see it every day. They talked until the restaurant was closing, until the staff was politely clearing throats and stacking chairs. Quinn paid the bill and they walked along the waterfront, listening to waves lap against the dock. I have not had a night like this in years, Quinn said, where I was just present, not thinking about work or the next deal, just here. I am glad. Elena leaned against the railing, looking out at the dark water. I was not sure I could trust you when you first came back. Part of me thought you would get bored, lose interest once the guilt wore off, but you keep showing up. That means everything. Quinn moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. I keep showing up because I care about you, Elena, not because I feel guilty, though I do. But because you are the most genuine person I have ever met, and being around you makes me want to be genuine too. You make me better just by existing. She turned to face him and he cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. Can I kiss you? He asked, voice rough. Yes. He kissed her softly, carefully, like she was something precious. Elena's hands found his chest, feeling his heartbeat rapid under her palms, and she kissed him back with all the feeling she had been holding inside for weeks. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. I am in love with you, Quinn said. I know it is fast, I know it is complicated, but I need you to know. I am completely in love with you. I am in love with you too, Elena whispered. Even though it scares me, even though I swore I would not let myself feel this way about you. We will figure it out. Whatever complications come, we will face them together. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips again. I promise I am not going anywhere. They spent the summer building something real. Quinn split his time between his company and the flower shop, delegating more responsibilities to his staff so he could be present in Elena's world. He learned every aspect of the business, from vendor relations to customer service, and threw himself into it with the same intensity he had once reserved for acquisitions. But more than that, he learned to slow down, to savor the small moments, morning coffee with Elena before opening the shop, lazy Sunday afternoons in her apartment, cooking together and watching old movies, evening walks through the neighborhood, hand in hand, greeting people who were slowly becoming their people. Elena bloomed under his attention. She started sketching ideas for expanding the shop, maybe offering classes or workshops. She hired 2 part-time employees, both young women eager to learn the trade, and discovered she loved teaching. She talked about her grandmother without the sharp edge of grief, remembering joy instead of loss. They navigated the challenges as they came. The difference in their financial situations was stark, and at first Elena struggled with it. Quinn wanted to spoil her, to take her on trips and buy her things, but she insisted on maintaining her independence. They compromised. He paid for fancy dinners and weekend getaways. She paid her own bills and refused to let him invest more money in the shop beyond their original agreement. "I need to build this myself," she explained one night when he offered to expand her space into the vacant unit next door. "I need to know I can do it, that I am not just successful because you made it easy. You are already successful. You did that on your own. With your help, which I appreciate truly, but I need to be able to stand on my own feet." She softened her words with a kiss. "It is not about you. It is about me proving something to myself." Quinn understood, even though it was hard. He was used to solving problems with money, and learning to step back and let Elena find her own solutions required patience he was still developing. But he worked at it, because she was worth working for. 6 months in, Quinn's business partner Marcus came to town and demanded a meeting. They met at Quinn's downtown office, in the sleek conference room that suddenly felt sterile and cold after spending so much time surrounded by flowers. "You have been neglecting the company," Marcus said bluntly. "You have handed off major deals, you are barely showing up to board meetings, and when you are here, your head is somewhere else. What is going on?" "I am reevaluating my priorities," Quinn said carefully. "Reevaluating? Quinn, you built this company. It is worth billions because of your vision and drive. And now you are throwing that away for what? A hobby." "She is not a hobby, and I am not throwing anything away. I am just finding balance." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying Quinn with narrowed eyes. "This is about that flower shop owner, is not it? The one from the foreclosure. Her name is Elena. And yes, she is part of it. But it is bigger than that. I realized I was living wrong, Marcus. Chasing money for its own sake, destroying things without thinking about the consequences. That's not who I want to be anymore." "So what do you want to be? A florist?" Marcus's voice dripped with disdain. "I want to be happy. I want to build things that matter. And yes, I want to be with Elena because she is the best thing that has ever happened to me." Quinn stood up. "I am not abandoning the company, but I am not going to sacrifice everything else for it either. If that is not good enough for you, we can discuss buying you out." Marcus stared at him for a long moment, then shook his head. "You have changed." "Yes, I have. I hope she is worth it." "She is." Quinn left the office and drove straight to the flower shop, needing to see Elena, to remind himself why he had made these choices. He found her in the back room, working on a complicated arrangement for an anniversary party, her expression focused and peaceful. She looked up when he walked in and immediately frowned. "What happened?" "Marcus thinks I am losing my mind. Maybe I am." Quinn crossed to her and pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. "Tell me I am not crazy. Tell me this is real." "It is real." Elena wrapped her arms around him, holding tight. "Whatever he said, whatever doubts he put in your head, ignore them. You are not crazy. You are just finally living like you matter as more than a profit margin." "I love you so much." "I love you too." She pulled back to look at him. "Are you okay? Do you want to talk about it later? Right now, I just want to be here with you." They spent the evening together, working side by side on arrangements, and Quinn felt his tension dissolve. This was real. This was what mattered. Marcus would come around or he would not, but Quinn was not giving this up. That night, lying in Elena's bed with her curled against his chest, he made a decision. "Move in with me," he said into the darkness. Elena lifted her head. "What?" Move in with me. My place is huge and empty, and I hate being there without you. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to build a life together." He brushed her hair back from her face. "I know it is fast, but I am sure about you, about us. Your place is downtown. That is an hour from the shop. So I will buy a place near the shop, or we will find something together. I do not care where we live as long as we are together." Elena was quiet for a long moment, and Quinn's heart pounded while he waited for her answer. "Yes," she said finally, "but we find a place together. Something that is ours, not yours or mine. A real partnership. Deal." They spent the next month house hunting, which turned out to be its own adventure. Quinn kept trying to show her mansions and penthouses, and Elena kept rejecting them in favor of smaller, cozier options. They finally compromised on a renovated brownstone 3 blocks from the flower shop, with big windows and hardwood floors, and a tiny backyard where Elena immediately started planning a garden. Moving in together was an adjustment. Quinn was neat to the point of obsession, and Elena was creatively chaotic, leaving flower clippings on the counter and books scattered on every surface. They bickered about closet space and whose turn it was to do dishes. But they also learned each other's rhythms, the small intimacies of shared life. Quinn discovered Elena sang in the shower and made the world's worst coffee. Elena learned that Quinn was grumpy before his first cup of that terrible coffee and liked to cook elaborate meals when he was stressed. It was domestic and ordinary and absolutely perfect. 1 year after the foreclosure, Elena threw a party at the shop to celebrate its revival. She invited everyone who had supported her, everyone who had helped make Petals and Promises successful again. The shop was packed with people drinking wine and eating catered food, and admiring the elaborate arrangements Elena had created for the occasion. Quinn stood in the corner, watching Elena work the room, and felt pride swell in his chest. She was radiant, confident, fully herself in a way she had not been when they first met. She had not just rebuilt her business. She had thrived. Mr. Patterson approached him with a knowing smile. "You did good, son." She did good. "I just helped." "You did more than help. You gave her a second chance, yes, but more importantly, you gave yourself one. That takes courage." The older man clapped Quinn on the shoulder. "Your grandmother would be proud," he said to Elena when she joined them. "She always believed things worked out the way they were supposed to." "I think she would like Quinn," Elena said, slipping her hand into his. "She always said the measure of a person was not whether they made mistakes, but whether they tried to fix them." Smart woman. After the party, Quinn and Elena cleaned up together, washing glasses and packing up leftover food. The shop was quiet now, just the two of them moving through familiar motions. "Thank you," Elena said as they finished, "for everything you have done. For showing up that first day and every day since. For becoming someone I can rely on. Thank you for giving me the chance, for seeing past what I did to who I could be." Quinn set down the dish towel and pulled a small box from his pocket. "I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. But standing here with you, in this shop that brought us together, it feels right." Elena's eyes went wide as he opened the box to reveal a ring, simple and elegant with a single diamond. "I know I started our story by being the worst version of myself, but you have made me want to be the best version every single day. You have taught me what matters, what love looks like when it is real and earned and fought for." Quinn took her hand. "I love you, Elena Graves. I love your kindness and your strength and the way you see beauty everywhere. Will you marry me?" Tears were streaming down Elena's face. "Yes. Yes, of course, yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, deep and sure, tasting her tears and her laughter. When they pulled apart, both of them were grinning like idiots. "I cannot believe you proposed in the flower shop. Where else would I propose? This is where everything started, where I met the woman who changed my life." Quinn kissed her again. "Besides, it is poetic. I almost destroyed this place, and instead it saved me." "We saved each other," Elena corrected. "You gave me my dream back, and I gave you a reason to be better. Best trade I ever made." They got married in the spring, exactly 2 years after Elena had received that foreclosure notice. The ceremony was at the shop, of course, surrounded by flowers and friends and the community that had supported them both. Mrs. Chen catered, Mr. Patterson officiated, and Sarah stood beside Elena as maid of honor, crying happily through the entire ceremony. Quinn's vows were simple and heartfelt. "I promise to show up for you every day, the way you showed up for everyone else. I promise to care more about people than profits, to build things that matter instead of just things that make money. I promise to love you with everything I have, for as long as I live. You made me believe in second chances, Elena, in redemption and growth and the power of kindness. Thank you for loving me when I did not deserve it, and for staying when I was trying to earn it." Elena's vows were equally direct. "I promise to trust you even when it is scary, to let you help me even when I want to do everything myself. I promise to remind you who you are when you forget, and to celebrate who you are becoming. You hurt me, yes. But then you spent every day trying to heal that hurt, and that matters more than the original wound. I love you, Quinn. Not in spite of our history, but because of it. Because it taught us both what we are capable of when we choose love over fear." There was not a dry eye in the shop when they kissed as husband and wife. The reception spilled out onto Maple Street, neighbors setting up tables and chairs, music playing from someone's speakers. Quinn and Elena danced in the middle of the street, laughing as children ran around them and friends cheered. It was not fancy or elegant or anything like the billionaire wedding people might have expected. It was perfect. Late in the evening, after most of the guests had left, Quinn and Elena sat on the curb outside the shop, still in their wedding clothes, sharing a piece of cake. "I have been thinking," Quinn said, "about what comes next. Next, I want to do more with the company. Not just real estate development, but community development. Investing in small businesses, helping them grow instead of pushing them out. Creating spaces that matter to people, not just spaces that generate profit." He looked at her seriously. "You inspired that. This whole experience did. I want to use my resources to build things that last, that mean something." "That is a wonderful idea," Elena said warmly. "You should do it. I want you involved, not running it. I know you have the shop, but as a consultant and advisor. You understand what communities need better than anyone I know." Elena considered it. "I could do that. Part-time around the shop schedule. Perfect." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, then Elena spoke. "I have been thinking, too, about expanding. Maybe offering classes like I mentioned before. Teaching people to make their own arrangements, to find the joy in working with flowers. You would be an amazing teacher. You could help. You learned from scratch. You could teach the beginner classes." Quinn laughed. "A billionaire teaching flower arrangement classes. Marcus would lose his mind." "Good, let him." Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. "We are building something different, Quinn. A life that does not fit in anyone else's boxes. I like that. I love that. I love you. I love you too." They stayed there until the stars came out, making plans and dreaming together. Two people who had found each other in the wreckage of a foreclosure and built something beautiful from the ruins. 5 years later, Petals and Promises had expanded into the unit next door, just as Quinn had once suggested. But Elena had done it on her own terms, saving and planning and growing carefully. The new space housed a classroom where she taught workshops 3 times a week, always booked solid months in advance. Quinn taught the beginner class on Saturday mornings, and his students adored him, charmed by the billionaire who was not afraid to get his hands dirty. Quinn's new initiative, called Community Roots, had invested in 30 small businesses across the state, providing capital and mentorship to entrepreneurs who reminded him of Elena. He still ran his original company, but Marcus had finally come around after seeing how profitable doing good could actually be. They lived in the brownstone, which now had a thriving garden in the backyard and was always full of flowers from the shop. Quinn had learned to accept Elena's creative chaos, and Elena had learned that Quinn's neat freak tendencies meant she could actually find things when she needed them. On a Tuesday morning in May, Quinn found Elena in the bathroom, staring at a pregnancy test with wide eyes. "Is that positive? We are going to have a baby." She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "Are you ready for this?" Quinn pulled her into his arms, his own eyes wet. "I am ready for anything as long as it is with you." Their daughter was born in February, a tiny perfect thing with Elena's dark hair and Quinn's blue eyes. They named her Rose after Elena's grandmother and brought her home to the brownstone wrapped in blankets covered in little flowers. Quinn held her in the nursery that first night, rocking her gently while Elena slept, and whispered promises. "I am going to teach you to be kind like your mother, to care about people and community and doing what is right even when it is hard. I am going to teach you that mistakes do not define you, but how you fix them does. And I am going to love you with everything I have, the way your mother taught me to love." Rose made a small noise in her sleep, and Quinn smiled. Elena found them there an hour later, Quinn still rocking their daughter, both of them sleeping peacefully. She stood in the doorway and felt overwhelming gratitude for the strange, winding path that had brought them here. For the foreclosure that had seemed like the end, but was actually a beginning. For Quinn's guilt that had brought him back and her kindness that made him stay. For second chances and redemption and the transformative power of love. She thought about her grandmother, about the legacy of Petals and Promises, and knew it was so much bigger than a flower shop now. It was about people and connection and building things that mattered. It was about a man who had learned to see value in more than profit and a woman who had learned to trust again. It was about showing up every day and choosing each other, over and over. Life was not perfect. They still struggled sometimes, still had disagreements and hard days. Quinn still occasionally got pulled back into business mode, and Elena still sometimes tried to do everything herself. But they had learned to work through it, to communicate, to forgive and grow together. Rose grew up spending mornings at the flower shop, napping in a basket behind the counter while her parents worked. She learned to walk among the flower coolers, to talk in the classroom where Quinn taught workshops. By the time she was 3, she could identify a dozen different flowers and was endlessly fascinated by how things grew. Elena and Quinn had 2 more children after Rose, a son named James and another daughter named Grace. The brownstone was loud and chaotic and full of love. Quinn scaled back his business commitments, even further to be present for every school play and soccer game and flower shop afternoon. Elena taught all 3 children to make arrangements, passing down her grandmother's techniques, creating a new generation who understood the value of beauty and service. On their 10th anniversary, they recreated their first date, dinner at the restaurant on the water. The kids stayed with Mrs. Chen, who had become an honorary grandmother to all of them. "Do you ever regret it?" Elena asked over wine, "giving up so much of your career to be present for us?" "Never, not even once." Quinn reached across the table to take her hand. "You gave me a life, Elena. A real one, full of meaning and love and purpose. I had money before, but I did not have this. I did not have you or the kids or a reason to get up in the morning beyond making another deal." He raised her hand to his lips. "You saved me in every way a person can be saved. You saved me too. When I lost the shop, I thought I had lost everything. But really, I just lost what was holding me back from something better. From you." They kissed across the table, 10 years of love and partnership and choosing each other daily compressed into that moment. 20 years after the foreclosure, Petals and Promises was an institution. Rose had taken over day-to-day operations, with James handling the business side and Grace teaching the most popular classes. Elena still came in regularly, but mostly to consult and spend time with her grandchildren, Rose's twin boys who were as obsessed with flowers as their mother had been. Quinn had fully retired from his original company, handing it over to Marcus's daughter, who had turned out to have both business acumen and a conscience. He spent his time with Community Roots, which had grown into a national organization supporting small businesses and community development across the country. He and Elena traveled often, visiting the businesses they had helped, seeing the lives they had changed. On a spring morning much like the one when it all started, Elena and Quinn sat in the shop before opening, drinking coffee and watching Rose arrange flowers for the day. "She is better than I ever was," Elena said proudly. "She learned from the best." Quinn squeezed her hand. "We made a good life, did not we? The best life." Elena looked around the shop, at the walls that held so many memories, so much history. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been, if you had not felt guilty, if you had not come back, all the time? And I am grateful every day that I did, that I listened to that small voice telling me I needed to make things right." He pulled her close. "You were always going to be remarkable, Elena, with or without me, but I am grateful I got to be part of your story." "Our story," she corrected. "It was always our story. From the moment you walked into my library with that guilty conscience and those determined eyes, we just did not know it yet." Rose looked over from the work table and smiled at them. "You two are disgustingly cute. You know that, right?" "Yes," they said in unison, and laughed. Later that night, in the brownstone that had sheltered their family for decades, Quinn and Elena sat in their bedroom looking through old photos. Pictures of the shop through the years, of their children growing up, of the life they had built together from the ashes of what could have been the worst thing that ever happened to Elena. "I forgave you, you know," Elena said quietly. "A long time ago, completely. I know. But I still think about it sometimes, about how close I came to missing all of this because I was not paying attention to what mattered. But you did pay attention, eventually, and that is what counts." Elena set down the photo album and turned to face him. "Thank you for coming back, Quinn. For choosing to be better, for loving me and our family with everything you have. Thank you for giving me the chance, for seeing who I could be when I could not see it myself." Quinn kissed her softly. "I love you, Elena Vanderbilt, more today than yesterday, less than tomorrow. I love you too. Always." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, two people who had started as enemies and became soulmates, who had turned a tragedy into a love story, who had proved that second chances were real and redemption was possible, and kindness could change everything. The flower shop stayed in the family for 3 more generations, each one adding their own touches while maintaining the heart of what made it special. But the real legacy was not the business. It was the love story that started there, the proof that people could change and grow and choose to be better. It was Quinn learning to value people over profit and Elena learning to trust again. It was a life built on showing up and doing the work and believing in each other, even when it was hard. Years later, when Rose's grandchildren asked how their great-grandparents met, she would tell them the story of the foreclosure, of guilt and redemption, of a flower shop that brought two people together and changed both their lives forever. She would tell them about kindness and second chances, and the power of love to transform even the most broken things. And she would end with the same words her mother always used. Your great-grandfather made a terrible mistake, but then he spent the rest of his life making it right. And that is the real love story. Not that they fell in love, but that they chose love every single day, no matter what. The flower shop still stood on Maple Street, its windows full of beautiful arrangements, its legacy one of love and family and community. Inside, you could still feel the presence of everyone who had worked there, loved there, built their dreams there. Elena and Quinn's story was woven into every arrangement, every transaction, every moment of kindness shown to a customer. They had started with a foreclosure and guilt and damage that seemed irreparable. They had ended with a love that spanned decades, with children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, with a legacy of goodness that rippled out into the world. Quinn had come back because of guilt, stayed because of Elena's kindness, and loved because he finally learned what it meant to be fully human. It was not a perfect story. They had struggled and fought and faced challenges that sometimes seemed insurmountable. But they had faced them together, always choosing each other, always believing that love was worth the work. And in the end, that was everything.